Welcome to this week's episode where I'm interviewing Carlos Garcia, who is a health enthusiast / health coach. So let's just get started. There's no sort of process for this. I just wanted to have an open and honest conversation with you regarding some of the things we've spoke about previously, and just explore a little bit more about your knowledge and probably expertise relating to things like common brands known as Ozempic and the fitness industry, hormones, and sort of your take on things from your experience with your own clients.
No problem at all. I'll give you an example right now, funnily enough, talking about hormones. I'm working just now for a guy who's a consultant endocrinologist and well-versed, but most endocrinologists just now, especially consultants in hospitals, they only really deal with one thing. They only deal with diabetes. They don't deal with, maybe some, menopausal work or various other parts of the sort of world of endocrinology, but it's mainly that's because that's most people in this world right now are insulin resistant or they're unfortunate to be autoimmune diabetes, which is totally different, but it's mainly insulin resistance. That's their big bag, for the world of obesity. And that's where maybe something like Ozempic or semaglutide, as it's known in the industry. But I was in his house and funnily enough, I seen he had a bottle of Morrison's supplements, vitamin D. Just vitamin D. And I sort of picked it up and I went, do you not go for vitamin D with K2? And he looked at me with this real puzzled face. And he went, what? And I went, K2. And he said, I don't even know what that is. I went, you must know what K2 is. I said, everybody should know what K2 is. Today, everybody should know what it is. And it's I know a lot of doctors in my world, and very many of them have no clue what it is and the importance of it.
Yeah.
And if I was to highlight some of the importances of K2, you'd be absolutely amazed. And this is not sort of anecdotal. This is real world studies all over the globe. Norway, Denmark, they've tens of thousands of people included in these studies for K2. And not to go down a deep dive with you here on this one, but vitamin D is a fantastic hormone. And the reason why vitamin D is a hormone, all sort of vitamins are, we have to either get them in our food or take them as a supplement. Vitamin D is more of a hormone because it gets made by, unless you take it as a supplement, which you can do, but it's made by cholesterol in your skin. So cholesterol released from your liver goes all over your body to all your glands as well as your skin. And it synthesizes with the sunlight, makes vitamin D. It's fantastic. Here's the problem. The world's full of, if you imagine vitamin D, then what vitamin D is, it will draw calcium from all the foods that you eat, bring it up, and where it should put it to your bones. That's where calcium should go. The majority of it should go to your bones and your teeth. That's it in a nutshell. Unless you're taking K2, it'll go into your bloodstream and that's where it stays. And it's called arterial plaque, atherosclerosis. And that's why with the majority of heart disease that we have is because of arterial plaque, calcium in your arteries and in your veins. Unless you take K2 as a supplement, which is very, very hard to get, because nowadays most people are taking other warded off types of foods like eggs, cheeses, red meat. Red meat is basically, unless it's got to be grass-fed, is full of K2 because it's made the bacteria. So all these things that they try and tell you not to take, dietitians and nutritionists and all these people all over the globe, are actually really, really good for you because it contains massive amounts of K2. And without going into the woods about it, it's the action that K2 has is it sends messages to proteins. And the beauty of K2 is actually it needs LDL, which is cholesterol, bad cholesterol apparently, to get a piggyback round the body into the bloodstream to waken other proteins that would then wake other proteins in the bones to then to absorb all that calcium into your bones, your skin. Because basically what happens is this calcium from vitamin D, it just attaches to all your soft tissue, which is your veins, your arteries, your skin in your face, like women and people as they get older. So your skin, how wrinkles happen. So if you take vitamin K2, it has to be K2, it's fantastic for your skin and fantastic for your arteries and will reverse heart disease. So most heart disease we have today is just because, especially up at the aorta and the valves at your heart are just rammed with calcification. It's unbelievable. It's so reversible. And if people just would take K2 every single day, twice a day, they would reverse heart disease. But when doctors like endocrinologists that I'm working for just now don't even know anything about it, what chance have you got? You know? So, and they don't even know anything about it. It's crazy. And there's so many other supplements that are exactly the same. So I think I mentioned to you before about it, because you know, we're doing blood work and things like that, you know, for lots of people. If somebody was to say my cholesterol's really high, and then without even knowing what that means, you know, they would look at the ratio of their cholesterol. That's the most important part. But if they did, and without knowing if they've a lot of calcification in their arteries, then the first thing I would do is say, well, let's just take K2 and we'll do it that way, you know, and save you a lot of hassle wondering why what you know, if you're going to be okay, because we need cholesterol. It's the most important thing that we have, you know, and it makes all your hormones in your body without it. But it's been given such a bad rap amongst many other things. So that's lots of the things I do, I would say, is follow people's blood work and then try and say, let's not, you know, I would look for things that would help, whether their B12 was low or whether their vitamin D was low. And then that's how I've stumbled across K2 as a fantastic vitamin. It's huge, you know, and when you, as I say, when you see somebody like a consultant endocrinologist that takes vitamin D on its own, and all that's going to happen is that vitamin D that he's taken will draw the calcium into his arteries, but not take it to where it's meant to go.
To where it's needed. So what was it, when did you discover K2 then, and where is it derived from?
K2 is basically derived from, I'll tell you where they discovered K2. It was, believe it or not, there was famous scientists in the 1940s that went to certain parts of the world where people had, it sounds really silly, but they had fantastic teeth and fantastic bone structure, like sort of wee parts of Switzerland and various places where people are going, why are these people with these gorgeous smiles? Because K2, if taken in the right way, will get driven to your teeth, which is obviously calcium based, and your bones, very, very healthy. And they wondered why that was. And that's when they stumbled upon K1 and K2. K1 is slightly different. That's for coagulation in the bloodstream, stays in the liver. But K2 travels around the body. So that's the difference with it. But then that was when I looked into, I suppose it's like when you think we're told to take supplements. Like if you're told to take something that a doctor would prescribe for you for, you know, high blood pressure or blood thinners or the dreaded you know what, I won't mention its name, you just do it. So you don't even ask a question as to what does it do? What does vitamin D do? What does vitamin C do? What do these things actually do? You don't, if you just don't know, you just take them. It's okay just to take them. Multivitamins, I know that, but I'm more inquisitive. Yeah. So I need to know what everything does. And the more you know what it does, the more you realise, that's fantastic.
Or you can make an informed decision to say, well, actually, I don't really think I'm comfortable taking that.
I think the thing is with vitamins and supplements, they're so important, more important than people would ever imagine. That, and then some people say, I think they just, because without knowing, they say, oh, I heard if you just take multivitamins, you just metabolize them through and you don't get the through your GI tract with the acid in your stomach, that you don't get the goodness. Well, I know for a fact that's not true, as possibly you would do by doing blood work on people, and then you read the blood work and if you were to say to give somebody a real high dose in the wintertime of vitamin D and K2, 20,000 IUs, and there's not really any high point now. As science goes on, I'll say that word, we now know. But they have found that out, that it's not, and most doctors would say, oh, you can't take that much vitamin D. A good doctor would know, you can't take that much vitamin D. You'll get crazy calcification. You say, well, what about if we take K2? And they go, what? And that's where they get it wrong. Say, take as much as you like and it gets it straight to the bones. And most importantly, it's fantastic for, especially women as they get nearer menopause, because it's fantastic. All that calcium will prevent osteoporosis. That's one of the biggest benefits of K2. And it really surprises me with hormone doctors, especially on HRT or that type, they don't realise that even just those basic sort of cofactors along with a women's HRT would be massively beneficial. They stop osteoarthritis as well, stop the kind of cause of bone spurs and sort of calcification in the knee joints.
Yep.
You know, so it's and not only that, you know, for lowering insulin resistance, believe it or not, K2, which would really surprise me about this particular doctor that I'm working for, wouldn't have realised that. But then maybe I understand they're very busy. You know, they've got a lot on their plate, or they don't have time to do what I do and sort of do deep dives into research and all these sort of supplements, you know. So, yeah, it's really good. Yeah,
but I think probably from my perspective, I would think that someone who's in that field, it would be their priority to investigate, to research, to keep up to date with,
I would,
you know, new findings or developments in science and health. And so I would find that a bit concerning that someone who is in a position of leadership in health is not following through with these things.
I think they're scared to, I don't know whether there's an element of maybe like supplementation of, well, even like taking vitamin D or K2 or vitamin C. They're the ones that promote it. They always promote these things, and you should have this, you should have that, you should have that. But then when you take it, then I think it's a bit sort of hocus pocus, you know, these multivitamins that people are taking, but well, you're the ones that told people to take these things, and now, and not only that, as it happens, they might not know what they do. Anyway, you know, you just sort of get told to do a thing, and once you take it, what's it doing for me? And that's probably where I'm a wee bit more inquisitive. I like to know. I don't think it's any point if you're going to tell somebody to take something. I think you should really do the research so that you can. Well, what would that do for me? What does it do to the body? What's happening in the body? You know. Well, I don't really know, but just take it anyway.
Hope for the best.
I don't think you can do that. You've got to at least offer, you know, and some things are really complicated. Yeah. You know, physiology of the body really is complicated. And like personally for me, I've got so much to learn, but you have to have some sort of informed, like, you know, GLP1s, you know, Ozempic and all these things. They're new to the market, but they're fantastic products for people along with supplements, you know. And I think now with doing podcasts like this, doctors and medicine, they get quite nervous about it, I think, because you're informed, you do your research, I do, and I think with lots of minds coming together, we're taking sort of current medicine and saying, no, wait a minute here. You know, because before we can now read things online, and maybe you're told not to read things online. You shouldn't be doing research. Everybody calls it research. It just used to be called reading. Reading things and getting to know stuff we're all allowed to do that. But now obviously you've not to do that, but we do that, and we're actually getting probably more informed than doctors that are kind of stuck in the woods or stuck in the mud because they don't do the research, as you've just said. You know, maybe they should do more so that they can, or they're possibly stuck in their guidelines where they're not allowed to go out of the parameters of what they've been told to stick with. Yeah, they definitely are. There's a lot. I was at Ross Hall just 2 weeks ago. I've got lots of issues with my knee, which is not bad. But you're not taking enough K2? No, it's just that I've got an arthritic knee with crazy amounts of skiing. And the doctor quite quickly realised I knew my stuff, you know, about most of these things. And we were just chatting about there's a new product on the market, which is really good for knees. It's sort of 6 injections in the knee. And I said, what about that? With that? And he went, I've heard about it, but, you know, I just stick to the studies. And I says, but there is lots of studies. You can go and look at them and see what you think. And yeah, but if the NHS, they're not, I like to just stick with that. Although he was working privately in Ross Hall. So,
wow.
Yeah. So they won't, but knee surgeons, orthopods are like that. They just stick. In fact, sometimes now where they used to go into everybody's knee and have a good route around and cut bits off a menisci and clean up bone spurs and various things, now less is more. They don't, you know, so I've been involved with that knee for a long time since I tore my ACL skiing. They've not got much further forward, and that surprises me. I think now obviously I'm not going to do that, but it is changing in the sense that lots of people are doing lots of research and finding different things that they can put in the knee and various ideas that they can help orthopedic surgeons along, that they might change a lot in the future, you know, to kind of work faster so that people can stay active, you know. So
yeah, I guess if these things have proven successful in the past, then there's probably no scope to change anything.
Well, not because they're not doing much to promote things. The only things they do eventually with somebody like, for me and my knee, would be, you know, it would be a knee replacement, but then that's limited as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and it's complicated, you know. So we'll see. You know.
Right, okay, so I'm going to move on to this section because we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about this, the last time that I saw you, and I had heard about things online, but I'm not really one for spending a lot of time online, so just been kind of browsing and come across this new term, Ozempic face.
Yes.
And then you had come in and we were chatting about things. We're chatting about weight loss. We're chatting about hormones. We're chatting about menopause. And I was telling you about experiences of just some of my friends and clients who had come in, and they were all similar sort of similar symptoms, similar situations, similar advice they'd been given. And then you kind of just blew things out the water.
Similar shapes.
Kingdom Lobby.
Yeah.
No, but I think you just blew things out the water because of your knowledge on things, and you says, oh no, that's not right, no, read this, or, you know, look into this, try this, and my mind was blown. So when you had started speaking about it, then I've been watching more videos on the content. So please explain to me what GLP1 is, your experience with it, and any successes or any sort of issues that you've come across using it.
GLP1s, they've been around for a long time, really. In fact, we have them. GLP1, like most of these things are just peptides, and they're endogenous. It's like insulin is a peptide, and they've all got different, they're amino acids, and they've all got different chains, the lengths of them. So like insulin's 51 amino acids, and you can make it, and they do make it, and they give it to people. You make your own insulin from your pancreas, but if it's not working, if you've got autoimmune diabetes, then you don't make it at all. And then also some people have they're insulin resistant, and that doesn't just mean that you don't make it, it means that your body doesn't quite read it properly for sugar in your blood. So that's one peptide. And another peptide would be GLP1, a glucagon-like peptide 1, and you make that in your stomach. And basically what happens is when you eat food very, very quickly, you know, maybe half an hour or so forth, and eating your food, you'll release that peptide, and you won't be hungry anymore. But then eventually, after maybe half an hour or so, that will subside, because it's only got like a 15 to 20 minute sort of half-life, as they say, okay? That's the endogenous, the stuff that you make. And then you maybe be able to eat your pudding and maybe a wee snack later, so on and so forth. So that's where they come up with the idea of making GLP1 agonists, okay? The difference with them, and it's like Novo Nordisk, which is a pharmaceutical company, they made one, liraglutide. They've all got TID at the end, you know, it's quite tricky names to say. So they made that Saxenda, it was, and originally when they first came out, they were for type 2 diabetes because they lower blood sugar. It's fantastic. But very quickly they realised, maybe they knew, weight loss, okay? And that's where Ozempic has a sister, a sibling called Wegovy, it's called.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, and that's for weight loss. That's not for type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. Okay. So the GLP1 agonist, and the difference with a GLP1 agonist or a GLP1 injection peptide is it lasts 5 days. Not half an hour or 15 minutes, the way your own works. And that's why people, and some people it doesn't work at all, so they just keep eating. So different, and that's the one. It's becoming more like that because then you become resistant to your own GLP-1 and you just get constant food noise and people are getting fatter and fatter and fatter. And it's a damn shame. It's crazy. It's a crazy world like that. So they've been around for some time, but every single year now we have Ozempic come out, and that's a single agonist. I don't want trying to make this complicated, so it's just a GLP-1. Okay, and then another competitor's now come out and they've made one called Mounjaro. And that's just now come into the UK, and it's all the pharmacies, Boots, here, there, everywhere, and everybody's rushing to get this Mounjaro. That's the latest, greatest sort of one, and that's a dual agonist, and that basically burns the fat off the belly and it stops people eating. They're fantastic. They're great if they're dealt with correctly. The problem is that you get so much bad press and you get people selling them online, and they would send you your little package and with very, very little instructions on how to use it. So that's how you hear people sort of saying, somebody's died from this. They don't even know what they're taking, or maybe they're taking too much, or they don't know how to reconstitute the vial of this thing that they've got through the post and, end up in the hospital, or end up, because remember it is for... they are for type 2 diabetes. So if people take too much, then they'll get really drop their blood sugars and they can go hyperglycemic and end up in hospital. And there's no education on it at all. In fact, I don't even think there's that much education from Boots, the chemists who sell it now as well. There you go, and send people away. But that's really what people want. They want to lose weight and fast. But it doesn't come with the right education, because... that's the difficult part, because if I was to put people or to get people GLP-1 or they were to use it, I would make sure that they had their diet correct first, make sure that they were taking lots of protein, and make sure that the last meal they didn't put in was maybe like a rolling sausage, because what's happening is with the GLP-1s is that your food travels so much slower. So your digestional tract, so much slower. Can you imagine like a rolling sausage or something traveling that slow? You just had the bunged up feeling that you would get from that. So make sure you eat correctly, make sure you do your training. Because now we're hearing all these new jargons like Ozempic, but so the women that have had a lot of weight, and then all of a sudden they get this Ozempic face, Ozempic
I've heard of that one,
sort of saggy.
Oh God!
But because they're not doing any physical exercise, and if you're not taking protein, it wouldn't matter what you're taking, then you're not going to build muscle. So
you're going to waste.
Exactly. Yeah. Not just that, your bones.
Right.
And that would highlight the importance of maybe taking something like K2. Make sure
Absolutely.
that you so you have that. When I would have somebody, without saying that I would or do, I would make sure that they take all the correct supplementation where they would use that. Yeah. And you hope that they through time they would learn. It's not just about people losing weight from GLP-1s, but then especially women and girls. They want Botox, they want fillers, they want this, they want to look fantastic, and they want it fast.
Yeah. Well, that's the concern that I have, actually, and we spoke about this as well before. It's some of the videos I'd been watching on the Ozempic, and they were I always like to read the comments. I like to just look for people arguing, or one person proving someone else right or wrong.
Yeah, I like that.
Quite like that sometimes. So I was looking on sort of people's comments on it, people's experiences on it, and one of the things that people were defending their choice of taking it, even though they weren't diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, they were purely taking it for weight loss.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, it was a lot of crazy Americans. You know, their portion sizes are massive, and they've got quite a different...
I don't think we're far behind. Really.
No, not really, but I think they've got a different sort of relationship with food and a different sort of relationship with their sort of lifestyle. So they were sort of defending that if they didn't take it, then they would put all the weight back on. And my first thought is, but it has to be the behaviour that changes around what you're consuming, because you can take anything and it's going to benefit you, but it's not going to benefit you for as long as you don't take it.
One of the biggest things that you hear a lot of people saying, whether it's a new jargon or not, food noise. This food noise, you hear people saying that, and a lot of people, but everybody says it now, and it's becoming a buzzword, although I've known about it for years. And you either have that or you don't. And as you say, especially Americans, I've been to America many times, and the portion sizes are huge. Yeah. Huge amounts of food.
But even the quality of the food, I find it's like nutritionally deficient.
Sugar. It's sugar. When we talk about drugs, it's the most addictive drug on the planet. Coming in various lovely colours and shapes and sizes and all sorts of things, and you don't even... It's like people say to me, why would what's the side effects from this GLP1? What will happen to me? And you say, what do you mean side? Like, what side effects that would compare to the side effects of all the food that you've eaten for the last 30 years to make you 35 stone, so much so that you now need to take this, and you're now asking about side effects.
Absolutely.
And we're still, people would profess, and the news, and don't take this drug, don't take that drug, and you shouldn't take this, and people are dying, and you feel like saying to, whether it be the BBC or whoever would say on the sea, why don't you have a pop at the food industry now while we're on the subject? Instead of having a pop at this GLP1s that are craze, they're trying to do something for people. Why don't you have a pop at all the petrol stations that have got the most abundant amounts of crisps and sweets and fizzy drinks, let alone supermarkets and everywhere else? Why don't you have a pop at them and see the amount of people they've killed because of one of the biggest causes of death, obesity and cardiovascular disease? Well,
this is the thing, right? And this is one of the things that I'd come across when I was watching these videos was they were speaking about... we now know that obesity is a disease, and they were defending the fact that people, and they were saying, it's not lifestyle related, it's not lifestyle choice, it's a disease. And I'm thinking, how moronic are these people and these professional people that are saying this? Because of course it's absolutely a lifestyle choice. Yeah, fair enough, someone might be predisposed to putting on weight more than someone else because of their genetics, but it's still a lifestyle choice. You're still putting that food to your mouth, you're still choosing not to exercise, you're still choosing to eat a big portion size.
I think it's difficult if the food choices of then, or they're being told by dietitians and nutritionists, and especially dietitians. When you see a lot of dietitians maybe in the NHS and they're telling you to have a high carbohydrate diet, that's the best diet, and you see the size of them and you say, I think I'll not follow your advice on this, because look, and it's still sugar. Carbohydrates are sugar. We need sugar, we need carbohydrates, but variant amounts, nowhere near. So I feel sorry for a lot of people. I wouldn't say that obesity is a disease, because it's not like an infectious disease or something like that, or a disease, but it's, as you say, it's more lifestyle choice. And then all of a sudden, would we say alcoholism's a disease?
No.
It's a choice again, but what happens is you will have diseases from that.
Yes, absolutely.
Cirrhosis of the liver and various other things. So there's massive amounts of issues and situations that happen after that choice. But the difficulty for people, this is where I feel sorry for them. If you think of like alcoholics or obesity, people addicted to food, it's hard. It must be so hard for them, So when I see people that are sanctimonious on forums online, you don't need these GLP1s, you just need to stop eating this. These people that are fat, and you say, do you want to come with me to the average supermarket and see if you can find somebody that looks physically fit? I'll give you 5 minutes to go in that supermarket and do not a trolley dash, but a thin person dash and see if you can find somebody, because everybody this day and age is getting fatter and fatter. So there's a hell of a lot of people that obviously don't know how to control their diet. So somebody's going to have to do something. And that would maybe where what you would say, well, let's just give them a GLP1, give them some sort of education, try and get them in the right track. Right, you're 5 months down that road, look at you, you're looking fantastic. The weight's fallen off you. You get your diet right, you now know that that's the right kind of food, and wean them off and see, now you have to do some physical exercise, get some muscle on you. You love how you look in the mirror, you can't not. Do you want to go back? This is a problem in America. Maybe in the UK this will work better. It's because we need to pay for this stuff. You're not for free. In America, they get coupons for Mounjaro or Wegovy or whatever GLP1. There's a new one on the market coming out now that's going to blow them all away. It's the same company that makes Mounjaro. Anyway, they get it with, if they've got good healthcare in America, they'll pay $25 and they'll get their month's supply of this particular, whether it's been Mounjaro. But then the insurance company might say, we've given up, we're not giving, because it's expensive over there. What costs maybe £150 for Mounjaro for a month's supply in the UK would be something like $1,150 in the States. It's crazy. I mean, it's so expensive for drugs in the States. Charge a fortune. And it's probably why people are so fat, because they just, anyway. So when the insurance company will say, we're not giving you any more because it's getting out of hand, you should have learned, hopefully you've lost weight and you should, be on the right track. Well, they're not. They're nowhere near on the right track yet. So what they do then is they just take a huff with everything because they can't, and it's the first thing they're going to do, gorge a bit of food and make yourself feel better. Or not. Worse, probably, definitely. And go back to where they were. And that's one of the big other statements they say, I've heard when you stop taking these weight loss injections, you get a thing called rebound. You can, I suppose you can, but you have to control. That's the bit where you have to look in the mirror and you have to see how far you've came, and then say, it's like cigarettes.
Yeah, it's like any addiction. You're going to have that temptation.
You are. Cigarette smoke, and it's not a disease, but it causes many diseases. COPD for one, a cardiovascular disease for two, caused by COPD, but they're all linked, and they're all much the same, really, and you have to ask yourself, it's okay, but we didn't ask them to sell cigarettes, we didn't ask them to sell food like the way they're selling food, and we didn't ask them to sell alcohol. I'm not saying ban it all, I'm not up for prohibition or anything like that, but if people can't control it, without me sounding sanctimonious, because we all like a drink, but you've got to learn to control these things for your own health.
I think
there's many people out there that can't,
Yeah, of course, and I think as well, it wouldn't matter what it is. It's the choice. It's the choice of poison for the person, and it's there. What you find effectively is it's a coping mechanism for some people because it's an emotional trigger, that the reason they're eating in the first place.
I mean, if you think of the NHS, the complaints that they had, not complaints about the bad quality, but the complaints about how overrun they are, well, then there's no better thing to not have them overrun than to have people not morbidly obese, for one.
Exactly. So it's got to be a bit
lot
prevention.
Of hassle. All these people, say that you go there dealt with, you've got a bit more time for this person. For somebody with a real illness, not a self-inflicted illness, then that's fantastic. It can only be a good thing, So, but then it has to come with the right education. I think with people, when they take them, your sister or your person or that person or whoever, they maybe keep it quiet. Instead of saying, then tell people and say, this is what you need to do, or to get some new guidelines. Certainly people would help with maybe GLP1s, they follow a certain regime, and you can see a big difference. Also the beauty of it now, the more we learn from we now know, the more we learn from them, sometimes taking less is better. It's managing symptoms, because the symptoms can be bad. People get a lot of nausea, get really bunged up, diarrhea, hypoglycemic, and that's sort of debilitating, really. Dizziness, and this a couch bound for the day after maybe injecting from the day before. So to try and manage the symptoms would be to take less.
Yeah. So what about absorption then? Obviously, when you had been saying earlier about like a rolling sausage and it takes longer, obviously, to pass through the digestive tract, what happens with the absorptions of vitamins and minerals then? Is that a slower process?
It is a slower process, but they'll be the same. You'll get the same end result.
Right,
you know, so as they're passing through, you know, it's a bit like a drip and a tap, you know, it'll go wherever it's going, it'll get to the end, but you will still get the same nutritional end result, you know.
So what about sort of like, because it's a metabolic pathway, so when you think about sort of energy metabolism then, so how does that work? Would they still have the same energy efficiency?
Well, yes and no. There is a period at the start where their energy is a wee bit less, but you've got to remember is that they're losing weight.
Right.
They need more. I don't think people realise this. That's why people eat a lot, because they're heavier as well. So there's an element of both, you know. So you try and pull a 10-ton truck or a 20-ton truck or something like that. It takes a lot more fuel to keep it going. It can't run in the fuel for a mini. So, and it's the same as a heavy person. So they'll eat more to haul the body, you know. So they are getting thinner. So they'll need less food anyway to help them along, but it is a difficult period. Right. I think really the ideal for me is for people's like protein drinks really help a lot. You know, you're really high on the protein for people that would take GLP1s. That's the key. That's probably the key for most food. If people could only understand the best food to eat, it would, for me, would be high protein and less carbs. Carbs are great, but they burn off quick. Yeah. And turn to sugar.
Absolutely.
If you've not got a lot of muscle, they just go to fat cells. If you're not insulin resistant, it might get stuck in your bloodstream, which is not a good thing. But but then if people just have a protein diet, like a keto diet, for instance, that's a difficult, it's hard to control a diet like that, because the carbs just give you that instant fix. Absolutely. But the protein itself will give you the energy you need to go out the whole day. You know, it's just far, far, far better for people. So likes of eggs in the morning, it's always a really good thing to have on stuff that's not as hard to digest.
So better. What about the sort of the correlation between high protein? Oh, this chair's just broke, I think. Between high protein and kidney function.
You'd be absolutely fine with that. Yeah, absolutely fine. And again, kidney function as well. That's another reason why I would ask people to take more K2, because it takes away, you get kind of kidney stones, which is calcium deposits, and it causes big time because the people have got this too much calcium. That's a good sign, a good marker for people that they're not getting enough K2, to be honest with you. And it's a shame, because that's, I remember being through a period of my life actually where people, or eggs that you don't take too much, they got massive amounts of cholesterol in them, and you sort of didn't.
I know.
The amount of eggs I take now, and the amount of red meat I take, and the amount of butter, full fat butter and full fat milk, like loaded with it every day. In fact, you did my blood work the other week, and it came back and it was like a gold star. And my cholesterol was as low as it's ever been. And I was actually hoping to go, yes, look at that cholesterol. It's, but it was just the same, just exactly the same as it always is. Everything's all. That's why I like to do blood work, because then I can see how dialed in I am and just keep on top of all
Absolutely. It gives you control, doesn't it, to older things?
I think lots of people should. I think women especially, older, when they reach sort of menopause, should do it more frequently. You go to your doctor, they don't have the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is another conversation following on from what we're speaking about the GLP1 and about insulin, and because insulin and the hormones are very closely related.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think people, it's more the more you recognise it and you see people, you can't sort of unsee it, especially when you see maybe people are slightly overweight. And you don't need to just be overweight to be insulin resistant. You can be underweight. And that's the thing is that it's very important to sort of recognise that it's too late, unfortunately, because that's probably worse than type 1 diabetes, autoimmune, because at least you know it and you've been diagnosed it and you continually monitor yourself, and you've got insulin, so you're probably in a far better place and far leaner and far healthier. Type 2 is probably a hell of a load worse in that sense. And you'll know this, I'm sure, but like sugar, again, it's so addictive. But again, it's one of the most, it's so toxic in the bloodstream. And if your insulin's not on point or working, you're insulin resistant, then it just stays in your bloodstream. And you start, like it's called peripheral neuropathy, diabetic neuropathy, especially you get sort of tingle in your hands and your feet, and it's just killing nerves.
Yep.
And when nerves die, they don't come back again. You don't get new ones. That's it. So, and this is why you see people, I see people in the street all the time, and you see a sore in the back of their calf, or you can't even see their feet, probably lots of sores in their feet, limb losing sores, and there's so much to it, so much concern of importance. I think that's probably one thing with the guy I'm working for just now, that's his concern, is that with everybody that's taking from Boots and all these other places getting GLP1s for weight loss, he's more concerned that the people that need it, the type 2 diabetics, don't get it.
Yeah. That's
his real concern. He's more worried, but with the grey market and not only that, the Eli Lilly, they're the ones that make Mounjaro, and Novo Nordisk, they make Wegovy and Ozempic, semaglutide and tirzepatide, and liraglutide. So they make these products. They make them in abundance. There's more than enough to go around. It's not a hard thing to make, really,
right.
So, and it's one of these wonder drugs, really, a bit like Viagra, I think, that come out. All the other ones they do things, bad things, but people with a terrible illness, they need certain things, pharmaceutical drugs. But these do a good thing, and the end result is good. Is that you're thin again, and you look good, and hopefully you can stay that way and enjoy a happy, healthy, long life. I think that's really the key. It's not when people ask me, say, why are you involved in sort of health and fitness and physiology and supplements and all that, what's that all about? I say, well, because you want to live not till you're 160, but if you do, but a healthy life.
Yeah, the best
and
that
if
you can.
If it's not healthy, then there's kind of no point, to sort of sluggishly get around and not be able to climb a hill, or to do some things, or play with your kids or grandkids, or walk your dog, or that, then there's no point.
You're just existing then, aren't you, really?
And they're not very healthily existing, It's not a good thing, but I think you don't know it because you're comfortable or maybe uncomfortable in your own body, but without being boastful. But maybe if you spent some time in my body, you might think I want his one because it feels healthier to be in. And that's maybe the key, the case of what I'm trying to say, I suppose, So, it's good. I suppose you get a lot of sort of menopausal women, or women that go to HRT. But I always find when they do, and they go, oh, this is not working. Look at the size of it. I'm not losing weight. And you go, well, what weight were you when you were 20? Well, I was quite a heavy girl. In year 30, I was quite a heavy girl as well then, and didn't do weights or train or do anything. And say, well, why would you think 50 or 55 going on HRT would make you all of a sudden look like this sort of woman that you thought? I don't know. You're going to just have the same. You've got something. The only good thing about HRT, I think, for women or men or whoever else wants to do, is that they've got the tools and the physiologically the right equipment to go to the gym and maybe lose weight. In the right place. It's setting the groundwork. So
definitely, I think it's about starting in the right way, and there's never a wrong time to start. I think you can start at really any point in your life. Fair enough, you might have sort of conditions that you've developed because of your lifestyle, but you can certainly always improve on things. You can always make good positive changes. Yeah,
and things change all the time. It's like even doctors now, when it comes to especially HRT, all they say things and then they're wedded to it. And it's a long, long time to unwed them to some sort of a statement that's been made somewhere high up in the BMJ or some, doctor in the higher echelons of the medical world. But now all of a sudden there's no right time to start HRT in a woman, whether she's in her 60s, or in her 40s. There's not sort of and it's getting better all the time. So the more people that do it and the more people that get involved say, there's nothing seems to be going wrong. It's like now, even when if you follow people, I do a lot of people with their blood sugars, and if people's blood sugars are up in the 11s now, you say, that's not so bad now. And you would say, well, it used to be bad 5 or 10 years ago. Why is it not bad now? It's because more people have got blood sugars up at that level.
Because it's a demographic,
but
isn't it?
Before it was, oh my gosh, they're type 2 diabetic and this could go wrong. And now all of a sudden, it's not, so they're learning all the time. And then again, now also saying testosterone levels in a man now are dropping all the time from the 60s to the 70s to the 80s, 90s to 2000s to now where we are. They're so low because obesity and the fact that men have their testosterone levels, so they keep lowering it so that they don't have to do something about it. If this was maybe...
Well, that's it, because there's responsibility there rather than diagnosing.
And cost as well.
Yeah, and I think that they promote sort of more antidepressant drugs rather than what the actual root cause is, which is testosterone. But funnily enough, when you're saying about the testosterone, one of my, I'll call him my idol, Dan Pena, always mentions about how the handshake of a man has weakened over time. And do you know who Dan Pena is? He's an angry kind of quite... You're related to him? Before I say anything else. He's quite abusive when he speaks and things, but that's the way that he calls guys, derogatory terms because their handshake's not firm and it's not solid and it's not masculine. And that's related to testosterone. Yeah,
it could be. I mean, to be honest, there's lots of things that are related to... especially as men go and women, and actually the fact women have got higher testosterone levels than they have estrogen levels, much higher. It's just that they aromatize, it goes over to estrogen far quicker. But also the scales are differently. I don't know why they do this, but the testosterone scale in one thing, so it makes it seem less than the estrogen levels done in a different level, and it seems like there's a lot more of that when it's not the case. But it's very obvious for me to know somebody who's, especially as a woman, who would have a high testosterone level and somebody would have a low testosterone level. And the same, if they take sort of sports, if you imagine like downhill skiers is one of my main hobbies, and Formula One racing drivers, believe it or not, they actually have, because they do all these things, they do blood work on these guys all the time. And the testosterone level in like racing drivers and skiers who are prepared to take that risk, and the risk creates massive reward. And sometimes if you don't take the risk, there's a better chance in skiing especially, and I would say in Formula One racing, you're going to have a crash. So that's when they look at that, the real aggressive nature, but focused aggression, when they do the blood work, they say they've got far higher testosterone levels than somebody who wouldn't excel at that sport. Certainly, that's the kind of things I like to see. Although I do know for a fact, that downhill skiers and Grand Prix drivers and anybody with that kind of sport that involves massive amount of risk, reward, and also focus, when they do the blood work afterwards, then they see that their testosterone levels are far, far higher. And you would see that in a lot in society, I suppose, you see, I think we all know that, if you imagine firefighters and people and that, I would like to do the same thing there and see what or maybe of the past firefighters.
Well, I know.
Who knows? Maybe it's not the same anymore, but certainly that you can see the ones that would react to something would be more. You could probably suggest that they're more tuned in hormonally. There's so much to it. Oh, definitely. You could go on and on because it could be related to absolutely every facet of life, couldn't it? But I think we'll end it there. And thank you so much for coming on today. It took all day. Right?
I know, Carlos. But let's have a rain check. We'll do another session on another topic. And I look forward to seeing you again.
No problem.